me.
And me.
But welcome. Holidays are hectic. What can we say? That's John. I'm Steve. Welcome.
Yeah. Welcome to Flycast. We're just a couple of nerds who like playing D&D, have a lot of DM experience, decided we were going to make a podcast and share our wealth of knowledge or just random nonsense, one or the other.
A little bit of both.
Yeah, been having fun with it so far. So this is now episode 7, I think. So that's pretty exciting. It only took us 3 weeks to actually get to this episode, but whatever.
Right.
No worries.
Yeah, there'd been a lot, like traveling and everything else. Like we tried last time, and I was driving on the way. I was like, well, I can do it from the truck, and then I hit some bad areas. And I guess the sound was just shit.
And the week before, I just wasn't feeling great and whatnot, and no worries. We're here now, so
right.
Fun. Those of you hanging out with us live, fantastic. We'll be taking questions later. You can throw them in chat. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever, thank you so much. Comments, likes, all that nonsense. We've got a link to our Discord in probably anywhere that you're at. Come join. That way you can drop in questions throughout the week for the next episode, etc., etc. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on in. Every week we've got a little bit of a theme that we talk about first, and then jump into questions for the second half. We've done a lot of verses, kind of looking at things from multiple different perspectives, but this week our theme is actually how to start a campaign, which we thought was pretty fitting because Steve actually just started a campaign. I didn't just start a campaign, but one of my games is going completely different direction, changing story arcs and whatnot, so it was a good time to kind of do this one, we thought. So without further adu, Steve, how do you start a campaign?
Oh boy. I mean, it's always the most stressful because you get to that climactic end of one that you've been running, and you've got established characters, you got established bad guys, you got established worlds, and then you're like, well, time to hit that reset button.
I think it can be super bittersweet, right? Because you've got all this background that you're letting go of, and then you're starting something new. But the new thing is really exciting, but at the same time it's also super awkward, and you lost all of
very daunting
the stuff from before.
I think this one for me has been a little bit daunting, just because everybody was really excited about this one, and this one was nerve-wracking for me because it's a world that I do not know. It's been a little daunting, but it's been the last session I felt a little bit more comfortable. But I think it really when I start a campaign, normally it starts from an idea. That idea grows. And then I talk about it with my friends, like you, Jordan, Tracy. I talk about it, and then we'll just roughshod. I'll throw it out to players too. I think the last one, I was I got 2 themes, and I had them vote on it. I was hoping for Dragonlance. They voted Eberron. And I was like, fuck. So I've had to do lots and lots of reading and rereading because everybody knows I'm super forgetful. I was rereading some of the book the other day, just glancing through it. But honestly, I think whenever I start a new game, it starts from an idea. Sometimes I have an overarching plan, and those have been some of my favorite games. But the past 2 campaigns have not started that way. They have started from just an idea, and with me going, okay, let's see where this goes. Kind of open it up, start with a base setting. This is how we get the players together. Give them something to focus on for those first few levels. Let's see how their characters grow. Let's see how they handle it and build around those characters into something that can be truly magnifique. I'm real guilty of liking to use your guys' backstories for like added content and trying to bring the world, make it more real, to make it feel
Yeah.
like more of an investment. And that's how I normally do it. Is I start off with an idea and then it grows. I see where it goes. I watch how I guess a good helpful analogy is watching where the river flows. Where does it bend? How fast is the river going? And what can I do to either slow it down or speed it up? I mean,
Yeah.
sounds cheesy, but
No, I like that. I feel like I do is like I do things fairly similarly as well. Like this current one that we're in my online game where we did Water Dragon Heist and now we're going into Tomb of Annihilation, and that has been more of, hey, I just kind of want to run a module or whatever, and these ones seem fun,
right,
so let's do that. But literally every other game that I've run has just been, hey, I've just got this idea, let's run with it, and then somewhere along the line we figure out what the overarching narrative of the
right.
campaign is, right?
Because
Like my
sometimes it's just not there.
yeah. And I know, like, you've had some to where you do kind of have an overall arcing plan to begin with, but not always. For me, yeah, like I've never had a game where I've had an overarching narrative before we've started, like, except for the modules, right? So,
Right,
like my first ever one, the Wine Women Adventure Tour, like when we rebooted it, I had somewhat of a overarching narrative because it was the same campaign basically, but like when we started that thing, I just had, I don't know, there's some goblins, we'll figure out what happens,
we'll figure it
and
out.
like
Yeah,
and like a couple of sessions in, I'm like, oh, this is actually really cool. I like this, and started writing stuff down. The My first online game, the whole idea was, hey, I've got this continent in my world that's just overrun with monsters, and I can do some really cool, weird, crazy stuff here. There's no like real realm of authority and whatnot, so let's just throw the characters there and see if they survive, and throw whatever I want to at them. And then like a random quest you guys came along had to do with this lich, and he kind of got away from you, and it
right.
was like, well, this kind of makes sense that this is what's going to go on then, and that kind of brought us to our overarching narrative. And then the like the Outlaws game, the that game started because I was like, what if the party were the ones being hunted by those pesky adventurers rather than the other way around? Like that was it.
Right.
That was my entire idea for that game, and then like
But then
other
it
things
grows.
evolved out of it. But yeah, I think I do something really similar to where you don't. I mean, if you're running a module, sure, like obviously you should probably read the module and see what the goals are, who the villains are, all that sort of stuff. But if you're just kind of trying to do something kind of freeform, kind of homebrew, I think it's a good idea to have an idea of maybe like what levels 1 through 3, 1 through 5 will more or less look like. Outside of that, though,
Right.
you don't really necessarily need to know. Maybe have some ideas for some overarching plot points that you can throw in here and there, and have some villains working in the background, maybe. But yeah, I've always seen that, like, if you kind of take what your characters, your players bring to the table and work with that, you'll find your story. That's how I always start out anyway. Like I've got an opening adventure, and then we kind of find the story along the way. Yeah.
Yeah, there's been times where I've just I've even had dinner with Jordan, and sometimes where you're just like you're just tapped out. Sometimes you
Hmm.
just like there's always the challenge of like wanting to do something different, something that you've never done before. I think that's kind of impossible in some degrees, just because there's only so many angles that you can take in high adventures. But at the same time, it always works out and it always evolves into something. And a lot of times it's something different. Like I'm getting ready to start planning for the next Sunday game where I'm going to be like, you gave me the idea of like taking through Midgard.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that'll be so much fun because there is an overarching story to that.
Hmm.
There's chapters. There's like the Silverleaf start, the small village where your characters gather for whatever reasons you're here, into the orc war and so on, until you start finding out somebody's pulling the strings behind the scene. You have the
Right.
reoccurring villain until you go into like this massive world jumping. You guys are just going through the world, just doing what heroes do, and slowly just building up. And then there's times like what we've done where like I have no effing idea. But I think from a player standpoint though, like you being my DM, like when we did that first online campaign, I had no idea that you didn't know what you were doing.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
I think some of it is a confidence thing. You just have to like
Yeah.
put yourself out there, have a few quests put together. Because I've even to this day, I still am a little self conscious. I know that first episode I ran in my new campaign, I was really self conscious. I just didn't
I
like
am
it.
all the time. So yeah.
I didn't like it at all. But everybody's like, "Oh, we had a great time," and I'm like sitting there going, "Man, this was shit."
Yeah.
And then the second one was better in my opinion. I really enjoyed it. And then somebody goes, "How did giant spiders get in this basement?" And I'm like, I don't know. Guilty of the random generator.
See, I try and this is a little bit off topic, but I anticipate stuff like that, and I try and think of like, okay, like I try and have an answer to that sort of thing a lot of times, which
I did not.
which ends up never coming up because, but whatever. Yeah, I think too. You said something about how like it can get kind of tiring because there's only so many angles you can take with like a high fantasy
Right.
setting. I think that's another really interesting thing, and it kind of goes back to both of us kind of starting campaigns just based off an idea. Like when you go to start a new campaign, just kind of what type of story is it that you're looking to tell? Because while you're right, there
Right.
are only so many things you can do with like a traditional medieval fantasy setting. You can run D&D as a Western. You can run it in a high school. You can run it, in a sci-fi setting. It might not be the best rule set for that. You might want to go with something else. But like, you can run a tabletop game, role-playing game in any of these different types of settings, or even keeping the fantasy setting, the world of Eberron and the world of Ebrion, which is my
Ebrion,
world's name,
right.
which when I made it, I didn't know Eberron existed, so I feel so bad about that. But those two worlds are so dramatically different, right? Like like Eberron is steampunk and there's magic everywhere, and it's like technology meets magic in this really cool way. And my world is
Right.
more of a high fantasy, medium fantasy, I guess, setting. There's kingdoms and rule and law, but then in some other parts it's more chaotic and whatnot. But there's kind of a little bit more structure to everything. People aren't just throwing fireballs around willy-nilly. There's very little technology in the way of like there's no light rail train or anything like that. So
No.
there's just a lot of differences just between those two worlds. And then you're like, I want something a little bit different. Well, pull out Curse of Strahd. That's a gothic horror setting. Or
Oh, my favorite.
like there's so many, like even just in the like traditional fantasy setting, there's so many different things you could do. You want something different? Well, how about a world where I don't know, elves are the primary species and humans are like one in a million. I don't know, that could be interesting.
Right.
Maybe dwarves are looked down upon because they're short and they're all slaves. Like, I don't know. Like you can do so many different things with just within the fantasy setting to make your world stand apart as well, which I think is pretty cool. Um, yeah.
Those are all solid, actually. Just in it literally it just starts from an idea,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then you go with it. And I think another good thing is just communicating with like if you have a set group of players in a game, just ask, what do you want? What are you looking for?
Yeah,
Go from there.
I think kind of with that, the importance of a session zero.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, what are your thoughts about a session zero?
They rarely happen for me. I
So
try
for
to have a
me,
session 0.
my biggest issue is that, like, every time that players get around, they're going to want to roll dice and play the game. So I always tie a
Yep.
session 0 into the session 1, so it's always like a session 0/0.5 or whatever.
Right.
So I'll always have, like, some sort of encounter and we'll get into playing. But I think, also, like, it's helpful for us because we've got that Discord. We're always chatting in there, always throwing ideas. Everyone kind of knows what's going on in there. But yeah, especially kind of with what we were talking about with all these different ideas and whatnot, like if you have an idea of a game that you want to run, you got to make sure your players are on board with that as well and they understand that
Right.
also. Because, I mean, just for instance, it's kind of talking about these different settings and whatnot. If we've got that world where humans are almost non-existent, almost everyone is an elf, and the entire party is made up of humans, well, that can work, but like, there's going to be consequences to that, and the party should know that.
Right.
You know, so I think, I
can see several of our players fighting us on that because a lot of them don't want to play a human.
Right.
They just don't.
Well, I think
where I'm like, sure, that sounds great.
I think that's super important, especially if there's a specific theme you want to get across and want everyone to be on the same page. I think my Starfinder game is an example of that, right? Like, I wanted to make something kind of in lines with Star Trek, to where it's humanity first venturing out into the stars, so aliens were pretty much off the table, which has been kind of interesting.
Midgard was similar to that direction too, because like we have been like, there's certain races that are available, certain ones that are not, because in this world, it's a little bit more traditional fantasy where orcs tend to be the bad guys. Goblins are hated. Even when I did the last campaign, I know James was like, I want to play like Dobby again. I was like, buddy, I just don't think it's going to be possible. But I told him why.
Right.
I said, because in this particular setting, it's predominantly human at the moment. It's just now beginning to where other races, yes, they're there, but they're not really introduced until later. And eventually, during that campaign, we did breaks and time gaps of years, and trade started to occur, and more races started to evolve. So at that point, if somebody would have died, then yeah, it probably would have been completely feasible to roll something like that. Just not at the beginning.
Right.
So yeah, I have had a few race restrictions.
I think that's the big key too, is the, like, you often hear as a DM, don't say no, say no but, or something along those lines. And yeah, I think that's key, is like, I want to play a goblin. Okay, not just no, that's dumb, go away. It's no, here's why. Here's what why we can do instead. Why is it that you're looking to play a goblin? Oh, it's just because you want a power game. And okay, well, I understand that, and I'm not going to, like, bag on you too hard for it.
Though.
But here's another suggestion that's still really powerful, is still going to be a lot of fun, and maybe it's something that you haven't really tried out before. I think, I think that's a great kind of example of that, of the whole, no, that doesn't fit thematically here, let's try and work on it to come together with something that we can both really be happy with, as opposed to, and that kind of does bring in that importance of whether you have just a straight up session 0, or you're all talking about it in your Discord, or you, like, the DM meets with the players one-on-one and discusses with them, whatever it may be. Because the worst thing is if you all get together on session 1 and Steve the DM is like, okay, humans, elves, and dwarves, that's what everyone can be, and that's it right now. And I come in with a Minotaur, Jimmy's got a Goliath barbarian, Tracy is playing a, like,
dark elf.
a drow, and then Adrian is made a cat. And you're just like, okay, well, I don't want to be a dick and say I'll make new characters, but nobody is really what I had expected or wanted, and now I've got to kind of talk in, like, how does this work? I don't know.
Yeah, it makes it awkward.
It can get a little tense there. So just kind of everyone being on the same page before the session begins will make things so much better.
Right.
And that's
Yeah,
not
I think
just
it's
it's not
communication.
yeah, it's not just race restrictions, it's class restrictions, thematically, it's like there's so many different things that kind of go into getting everyone on the same page to tell a similar story in a similar setting, right? It could be as simple as like someone has made a backstory about having been a slave, and you're like, well, slavery hasn't existed in this world for 300 years, so how did that happen? And the
How did that
player's like,
happen?
well, you didn't tell me that, so like just kind of discussing all that stuff back and forth, I think is huge to kind of get that session one on the right track from the get go.
Yeah, because if you don't let them know, they're gonna. And like I've been guilty of making like these huge backstories.
Right,
Got this nice character, and then you tell me I can't do something. You're like,
right,
it's a downer. We want you to have fun, and we want you to
right.
feel included.
And I think that communication between like the player and DM should definitely be happening in the days, weeks leading up to the game because, like my world, for instance, has been like slowly built out more and more. The more we've played in it, it's always in the same world, and kind of building some more of the history behind it all and everything. And if you come to me with a character whose history just doesn't fit in line with the history of the world, then that just sucks for everyone because you're expecting a certain thing. I can't deliver that because I've changed the history of the world to this way. Whereas if we could have
Right,
talked about it beforehand, I could have maybe rewritten some of my history, or we could have talked and been like, no, maybe you should be from this city instead because that would make more sense. All of that sort of
right,
stuff. And then it makes it, not only does it fulfill both of our expectations, but then it also makes it easier for me to tie in kind of your background too, because hey, we might
right.
just go to that city. Yeah,
Good example of that was last night when Adrian's like, "I got the pirate background." Anybody know? I'm like, "Okay, where are you from?" Because I
right.
tried to gloss over people's backstories. He didn't have it in there, so
Yeah.
I was like, and I didn't tell him. I was like, I was just honest. I was like, "Listen, I just don't know.
Hmm.
Maybe we can workshop it together and find a way to maybe bring that in. But right
Yeah, and
now, I just don't have an answer."
I think that's a great answer to that too, right? Like, and I understand like if he's not familiar with the world or whatever, I don't know where to say him from, but then just ask the question, right? Just like, just type up a quick DM or something and be like, hey, I've got this pirate background. I'm kind of trying to think of where, I would be
I checked
known
out the
in and
world map.
whatnot. Yeah. Um, like I think that's cool. I also think it's pretty cool when like if there's more of a blank slate for the world, or at least for a certain area that a player can kind of put
And we've done that too.
what they envision into it. I think yeah, we've done that where like I kind of helped build out the Cadian Empire a little bit in your last
Yeah,
campaign.
man, it was great.
I've talked with Tracy a little bit about Drow Society in my Eberron world. I've kind of thrown in what my idea of it is, and it's kind of gelled more or less with what her ideas were. I've let her kind of create her own deity and whatnot, and we've kind of talked about
Right.
that a little bit. I think that really struck a nerve for me in the first One Minute Adventure Tour campaign when actually it was her character when she started talking about her background and the different drow houses, and I realized I hadn't thought about any of this stuff, and my idea of the Underdark was just, I don't know, drow live in like different camps here and there. That's fine. That's good enough for me. And her idea was
Right.
so completely different. Now, luckily, I hadn't like built anything out, so I more or less kind of started to take from what she was building. But that's a situation right there where it would be nice to be on the same page with everyone, so everyone's got the same expectations. And I mean,
Right.
in that situation, luckily, I got to kind of take some of her ideas and flesh out my world there. Um, so yeah.
It just takes a lot of pressure off of you when you're trying to build the campaign too.
Hmm.
Like, cause it can be a lot of pressure. I think Jordan told me, he's like, that sounds like a lot of work. And I'm like, it is a lot of work, but I enjoy it. It's something I wanna like whenever I plan, I wanna try to make it as easy as I can for the player, but at the same time, I want it to feel lived in. Like I made a couple of NPCs the other day that might have no bearing on the story whatsoever, but I made them with names and everything, so that way when you guys interact with them, they're there. Like you guys have a handler at the inn. His name is Bertram. He's an orc, but a well-mannered bartender. And I made the one lady who owned the theater, because you're having interactions with her, giving her a name, giving her a purpose. That'll come more into play later. I've got a couple other NPCs. Like, actually, when we were playing the game last night, actually gave me a great idea for like a possible villain. So, it's literally, taking inspiration when it comes and rolling with it. So
Kevin.
Nah, not Kevin. No. I can't handle more. I mean, I like Karen, but my players are very annoyed with her. But that was how the character was designed, and I was actually happy that he put that much thought into this particular character. It showed me that he's growing as a player. He's definitely grown as a DM, but he's growing as a player too, where I put thought into this. This character is this way because, and then we check, like, yeah, there's possible character growth. So that way she's not always such a raging, bitch. So.
Okay. Session 1. How do you start it?
Me? Yeah. I mean, I think I have tried to avoid the get together in the inn, but the get together at the end is the easiest.
It gets a bad rap because it's such a trope, but it actually works really well.
It's the easiest because everybody's having a drink. You're traveling for whatever reasons. You're from this area. You're from this area. I'm here for this. My character is here for this. Bar fight. Who doesn't love a bar fight?
It's a really good level 1 encounter too, because you can, especially if you're in any sort of civilized society, right? Like, even if it's just a small town, there's a sheriff and there's guards. So if you pull out weapons, there's a good chance someone's going to jail or worse.
Right.
So it can just be a fun little level 1 bare knuckle brawl, low stakes, get to roll some dice. Yeah.
Another one I've done different ones, but I think my first campaign, pretty sure I started you in town and basically gave you one quest. It was a summer solstice thing, and the town leader joins, like, you guys have been here for a while. I'm going to task you with hunting this boar. It's a barbecue basically. And he gave you some like low level healing items. I made a healing salve, which was basically a healing potion, but instead of drinking it, you just rub it on the wound, like a traditional like poultice kind of thing that would heal you. Something to, like, just in case you got into some trouble, to put the players at ease, because I am guilty of accidentally killing players at low levels. But try to give them a little something and just push them, just that baby push, just give them the gentle push. A genuine reason why you guys are together. And then this last campaign, because we do have so many players, we went with the patron, kind of theme. It's like, because everybody, again, on this train, traveling for different reasons, and whether you realized it or not, you fucked up. Now you owe this guy some money, but it's giving you guys a chance to, like, this is why we're together. But then after it's all said and done, we don't want to split up because we work so well together. It's bringing in that teamwork. It's giving you a theme, teamwork wise, where some people were like, they're playing the game, they just expect to be in a team. But if you're playing the character, why would I want to be with these people? Why would I want to deal with Karen? Let's use that as an example.
Right.
Because Karen is a fucking beast. Karen is going to absorb. She's going to draw the attention of guards for me. She's going to draw the attention of aggravation for me. Why would I want to be with Sir Alistair?
Sir Alistair, yes.
Sir Alistair. One, because he's cool and looks good in a tweed jacket. 2, he can take a hit if he needs to. 3, he gave one of my players a magic weapon at level 2.
Yeah.
Holy fucking shit. I was like, you cunning son of a bitch. But I was like, I told myself, I'm like, I'm going to try to avoid giving players magical stuff or at least super good stuff until level 5.
Well, you
Jimmy's
have an
got a
artificer,
plus
so.
1. Jimmy's got, well, that's my bad. Jimmy's got a plus 1 pistol that never runs out of ammo. I'm like,
Yep.
that's genius. How can I be angry at that? I'm
Yep.
like, that's fantastic. It just caught me way off guard, and I was like, cunning dude. This is what I have to deal with. But but it was cool because then, like, by you doing that, that character cemented, a friendship with
Mm-hmm.
2 characters who are basically kind of to themselves for the
Yeah.
most part because of their backstories, but you endeared yourself to them. So now the beginning of the campaign has that solid foundation. Once you
Well,
got that foundation,
and that's why he's the one that I did it to, because I'm like, those two are so like separated, you know.
right?
But yeah, no, I agree. I think any way in which you can bring the party together and help them form a cohesive unit and a reason to be together. I think part of that is on the players, right? Like, players need to stop making characters who don't want to be adventurers. You know, if you present the players with an obvious opportunity for adventure and they don't bite, well, screw you. Make another character then.
Make
it's
another
that simple.
one, right?
But at the same time, like, the DM does need to like help them with that little kick in the pants and give them a reason to kind of try and get together and see what happens. I think. Anything that facilitates that is great. I do think, again, I know starting off in a tavern gets such a bad rap, but it works so well.
It does work.
It really does. Everyone can kind of introduce themselves at a different time. There's something for everyone there, whether it's someone's the bard, so they just get up and start playing something, or they like throw money at the bard and request another song, or they go try and play cards or win an arm wrestling competition, or try and order an ale or whatever. And while they're doing all this nonsense, the villain appears and like whatever happens, or someone runs in and says, "Oh my goodness, my child is missing," or whatever.
Right.
And then it just kind of presents that like crisis where now those who are ready to act will act.
I have a giant spider infestation that almost kills a player.
Yeah, exactly.
How did it get in there? DM magic.
So I do really like that one. I have before done ones to where, the party's been together for a while already, and I think that can kind of work. You still, because the players are new to playing these characters, I think you still do need to have something along the line, something to still get everyone kind of going, even if like you tell them that they've known each other before, whatever. I really like one to where it kind of starts you like right in the middle of action. Where you essentially start off with a call to initiative. I'm actually going to be doing that. I'm running a one shot tomorrow, and I'm going to be doing that in that one right there. It's going to start off with combat, and I think that works really well. And then after that, like during that combat, you get a chance to see everyone and whatnot, and then after it, you can kind of pull back and give a little bit of a background as to why everyone's here and what's going on, and kind of fill in the pieces. But it gives the party a reason to kind of already gel together, and then they'll move forward. Right. That one works really well. I think the tavern works really well. Being in the middle of a job, I've used before, and that's worked. You're on an escort mission or whatever.
Right.
I like all those. Anything that instantly kind of forces the party together, I think works really well.
I did that for the Curse of Strahd because I had these. They were all basically brand new players. And what I did is I told them, like in the session, I was like, "You guys have been adventuring together for about a year." Because I started them at level 3. So you guys, because not only did I know that them as people had a tight bond, but they needed I gave them a reason why their adventurers would. And then I gave them a reason why they had magic items at level 3, because you were tasked with a job to go into this dungeon and find a particular, item for this wizard. You guys barely escaped with your lives, but you guys came back with one uncommon piece of loot apiece. We rolled it on a table and we introduced them, and then we did a lore dump on them a little bit, and then we brought them into the world. And
Yeah.
then we went with the wolf encounter. So I did
Right.
that kind of systematically to kind of like, this is the why, this is how long, and just to kind of give them a reason where they wouldn't even question it as players. I've done that. And I've also, like we did on the train where you guys were traveling to Sharn for whatever reason, and then, giving you that reason why now you're kind of stuck with each other. And it's been like the last session to me, I enjoyed this last session much better. And I think it's just because I saw the party working together. They were
Yeah.
gelling. The role play was starting to come out a little bit more. Gave you
Gelling
guys
like a
like a
felon.
week, right? And I will say this: when you're starting a campaign, make sure you put a little bit of downtime in there for people, because not everybody wants to just slog through it. You want to grow as a character, and I like to see it. I just like to see, what are you doing during this time?
Right.
Engage your imagination, that kind of thing.
All right. Well, we are right about halfway, so we're going to go ahead and take a quick 3-minute break, and we will be back with some questions. If you got questions, you can leave them there in the chat. Otherwise, we're going to be taking the ones from our Discord that we have already. Again, if you're not part of the Discord, go ahead and click a button somewhere, wherever you're watching this or listening to it, or follow a link. Join the Discord, drop questions throughout the week, and we'll get to them during the podcast. So hold tight. We'll be back in 3.
Woohoo! Maybe I should let these guys know as well. Tapatio hot sauce. It's the best. You're welcome. And Grady nachos. Who doesn't like Grady nachos?
Nothing like nachos and hot sauce. Hot sauce.
I love hot sauce. Gotta give everybody the sauce. Doing well, buddy. Doing well, man.
What up, Koa? Yeah, doing pretty well today. Yeah, well, welcome back to the Flycast. Other half of the hour here, we're going to go ahead and take some questions from the Discord. Any new ones, you can throw them in chat. We'll see if we can get to those as well. Map Compass Key did say he enjoyed how Steve started his most recent game with there being a noble in the North cart. Some people cared, some people didn't, but either way, it didn't really matter. Something happened that was kind of irregardless of that. Which, yeah, I think that was really smart. That was a cool idea. It kind of, regardless of what the choice the players made, the catalyst was going to come anyway, which is pretty cool.
Kind of give you a little bit more lore too, like once you guys got done with it. Because there's a lot of lore to that city. Holy moly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, on that note, let's go ahead and grab the Discord and take a look-see at some questions.
Cole lined them up for me. You put them right there for me, so I didn't have to scroll.
Okay, well, the first
Good
question
on him,
that
man.
we actually got was from our favorite damage slut, who asked, "Why do you never run an evil campaign?" First of all, I will say I have run. I'm never gonna run a straight up evil campaign, and I'll tell you why in a second. I've run morally ambiguous campaigns before. All of my campaigns are that to some degree, for the most part. Especially like Outlaws was kind of the big one, where it was like I'll let players play evil characters and whatnot. But
Right.
an outright evil campaign, always it can be a lot of fun for 2, 3, maybe even 5 sessions, but before long it is always going to devolve into I'm trying to kill the other party members. Because if you're legitimately all playing evil characters, you're all out for only yourselves, and the first moment that somebody else gets on your bad side, you're going to try and kill them or rob them. That's going to start to make everyone annoyed with each other. It's like, well, my evil character would just rob you blind while you sleep, well, my evil character would stab you in the throat while you sleep. It just isn't fun. maybe you can find a way to do it that's fun. Everyone that I've ever heard do an evil campaign says the exact same thing. It never turns out well, no matter how mature your players are. I think one or two evil characters in a campaign with mature players can turn out very well. I think for instance, in the Outlaws game, Grady did play an evil character. I think it was even chaotic evil.
Right.
And Vethmil was a son of a bitch. But you know what? He helped the party at every turn. He was trying to steal dragon bones to raise a Dracolich,
Yep.
but at the same point, he never went against the party. He was always aiding them because that was what was best for him. I've played a couple of evil characters before who were always on the side of the party, despite the evil stuff they were into on the side. I think it can definitely work, but when everyone is evil, then it just kind of becomes a murder fest.
Right. It is like, for me, I think I like to explain it this way. I want you to be heroes. I love
Yeah.
heroes. I love superheroes. I get the joy of being your supervillain, and I like to see you succeed. And if I'm running a Joker filled campaign with no Batman, then it's just, to me, that's a slog. I'm not gonna enjoy that. And if I can't enjoy it, your DM has to have some enjoyment too. And where I get enjoyment is seeing you succeed and overcome obstacles and seeing you guys shine. And I just don't like I just don't want to see. I'm okay with a little bit of player PvP as long as it doesn't get too out of hand.
Mhm.
But when it just devolves into a straight up monkey fest where you're just throwing poop at each other,
Right.
then that's just not fun. And then it's going to be boiling with tension, and the Discord starts blowing up because then like people just they don't talk about it. They'll text about it, which is, oh God.
Right.
Just give it, I mean, that's really why. I think it's fine for like a one shot, two shot, three shot, four, but you got to go in with the hey Zelman, what up, bro? You got to go in with the mindset that and again, this boils back to campaign and communication. This is what's going to happen. Are we okay with this? Sure. All right. No hurt feelings. If you have hurt feelings, I'm going to slap the shit out of you.
Right. And kind of on the flip side, if you want to play an evil overlord who subjugates the people for his own devilish ends, be a DM. It's fun. That's kind of my final note to that one.
Exactly.
Got a few questions here from Grim. First of all, where's a good setting to start? I think we kind of mentioned that already. As maligned as it is, tavern works very, very well. But really anything that gets your characters interacting quick and gives them a reason to kind of start acting as a unit. In the middle of combat, in the middle of a job, on a train worked very well. Yeah.
We were riding that train and we were high on cocaine.
Yeah. Here's a good one, though. Same Grim still. When do you think you should introduce your big bad evil guy?
Answer anytime you want to.
Yeah.
They don't have to. You can introduce them as a shadow. You can introduce them as somebody you got an ominous feeling when you pass somebody on that train. You may not even have an idea for them. Yeah, see, he got my reference. Selman got my reference. You better watch your speed. Yeah, he got me. Thanks, bro. I think, like, for me, especially in my current campaign, I don't have a BBG. I don't. I have an idea for maybe a reoccurring person, but that person might only last for a few levels. I think when I start thinking about a big bad guy, if I don't have the overarching story, let's just go back to that. If I have an overarching story, I know exactly who it is. If I don't, I let it develop. I think I think even with the last campaign, I knew you guys were going to be fighting the gods. I knew that. But I also knew that was going to be way down the line. So what I did was I started making some reoccurring themes, like you're going against this person and you destroy their mortal form, stuff like that. You can introduce them. I think my favorite one is when we went to the Cadian Empire, and I gave John's character a fake brother that he didn't know about. And he was the complete opposite, where John's character is just like, yes, you have this zealotous cleric
Right.
that like trying to lay claim to the throne, so that it was immediately sowing seeds of like, I hate this guy, to like, and it turned out that guy was a complete tool. So there's so many different ways. Yeah, but we loved Rupert. Yeah. I mean, Rupert was a tool in all the right reasons. Right. Like, no, you were very clear about him. Yeah, it was very good.
I agree. I don't think there's a right answer or wrong answer to this. I do think that's a really good advice, though, that you don't have to have exactly who the big bad evil guy is going to be laid out from the very start of the campaign or anything like that. I really like the idea of, you can introduce them early as just, you guys are on a low-level quest, and one of your characters needs to make a wisdom saving throw. Oh, right. Shit. You rolled a 12. Okay, cool. Good to know. And that's it. That's it. Yeah. They don't need to know why. Maybe you can add just a little bit more information. It's like you have the sinking feeling that you're being watched. You don't know why, but you're certain. And then just kind of move on. And I think little things like that can be really effective and really cool. That said, I think there's nothing wrong with. If you want to have a big overarching narrative and you have a good idea of who the big bad evil guy is going to be, I would start introducing stuff about them at least very, very early on.
Right.
If you're doing something like Curse of Strahd or whatever, then maybe have them show up like right at level 1 or something. Or you could do something far more subtle, that whole like scrying example right there. Or maybe the party has just kind of the side quest where they're raiding a cave, and the cave kind of leads into this catacomb, and in the catacomb there's like this ancient text about whoever your evil guy is, and it's just like a warning, do not open whatever, and the party's like, that's interesting, and then 3 levels later they kind of hear news about something having been opened, and then they're like, wait a second, that's like that thing that we heard about 3 levels ago, and like you can kind of sprinkle stuff like that. I think that's really cool. But I don't think there's a hard and fast rule.
I think my favorite thing that recently that you did when introducing a bad guy to us is we had to go up against this wizard in the previous portion of that book. He took my hat. He never said why. Yeah. And then I thought about it. Why the fuck did you take? God damn it. He's going to scry on me. Because he's got a personal artifact of mine that was cherished. My top hat. They used my top hat in the last session. This is where the big bad guy, I think your wife even baited it. You're like, don't touch his hat. And
I don't remember who did, but yeah.
Well,
it gave me the idea. It was like, oh, okay.
And then he touched my hat, and I pointed my thing, and I blew him up. I was like, ordinarily, I probably wouldn't have done that as a player, but I loved what Megan was doing. And I was following what she was putting down. I was like, she wants a fight, I'm going to give her a fight. And I like, ba-doom!
Yeah.
Now, granted, he could have killed us at any time.
Yeah, but he didn't.
I was like, mistakes were made. It was fun, though. I enjoyed that session.
Next question. What do you think the best starting level for a campaign is?
Oh, I know your answer, right away.
Level 1 all the time. Obviously, level 1's the obvious. It's you definitely don't have to, though. I think 2 or 3 is also very, very good for low level, right? Like, you can start at level 2 so that you don't have the fear of instantly killing someone with a single hit, because that can happen quite often at level 1. And you can just give the background of, you guys have been adventuring for a little while. You've left home and you've been on the road for a few months. Sure, you're level 2. Why not? 3 is a great milestone right there because everyone has their subclass at that point. 5 is another great milestone because now the party is strong. Multi-attack, third level spells, that sort of thing. And unless you purposefully want a very powerful campaign, I wouldn't start higher than 5.
Right.
I think Steve, you started us at 10 or 11 once, and I think that worked very well because you specifically said, like, you set that expectation again, kind of what we were talking about before with a session 0 or communication beforehand or whatever. You set the expectation, this will be an epic level campaign. You're going to like go plane hopping and everything, so we're starting you out at level 10 for that reason. And I think that can work if that's the type of game you want to play. If that's not the type of game you want to play, I wouldn't start any higher than 5. I really, really like 1. I understand the argument for 2 or 3. That's what I
loved running. I loved running that, and that kind of ties into what I'd follow up with you is like, I like level 1, especially for newer players or somebody who's never had that opportunity. To start from the beginning.
If you've got players who are new to D&D, D&D 5e is honestly a rules light system compared to like 3.5, Pathfinder, Starfinder, and a bunch of others out there. But even 5e can be very daunting for someone who's never done it before, so I would not start any higher than 1 for brand new players, because they need time to learn those abilities.
I like the idea. Well, no, you're fine, because you're exactly right. So that's definitely a good point to jump in. I like the fact, the more and more I think about it, the more and more I really like the fact that I had a higher levels tier game, because what it did for me personally was it taught me very quickly, and I mean very quickly, how powerful a high tier party can be.
Yeah.
And it was a learning experience. And at the beginning, it was a little frustrating, but as it went, though, I started to lean more into it, and I was like, I threw an entire village of Durgar at you guys, and you guys did it. You guys had no problem whatsoever. And that, for me, that was so freaking cool, because it was a little stressful on my end to manage that many NPCs. But at the same time, just seeing you guys be this epic group of badasses, this god chose for a reason.
Right.
Because you guys were dead, except for your character, which was the first of his kind.
Right.
And it was like, it's showing why Vac chose these characters.
Yeah.
Because you are badasses.
Well,
I think it's always cool to do that.
It's fun from a player's perspective to be badass and powerful. I think because I DM so much, it's easy to forget what it feels like to be a player and to just stomp the ever-living shit out of your enemies. Sometimes that's fun.
Right. World building question.
Yeah, well, let's take this from Zell. World building question. This might be our last one. I've usually ran already existing settings and embellishing on that. I'm trying to get more into writing my own setting. How much of the world should be built before the start of the game? Ooh, that's a great question.
You take that one.
Yeah, this is a little bit more. I mean, Steve, you've done this plenty too.
But, I have too, but I like your.
Don't do what I did. So I, for a while before getting to run my own sessions, I played D&D a little bit, but I didn't really have much of an outlet for it. So what I did is I just started to get to world building, and I made, I got a name for my world. I decided I wanted 3 continents and named those. I decided this world has 3 moons, and I named those. I drew maps of 2 of the 3 continents anyway. On the main continent, I drew out kingdom borders. I decided there were 4 human kingdoms on there, 2 dwarven kingdoms, and 2 elven kingdoms. I just planted cities. I made names for all of the human leaders and many of the other leaders around as well. I named every city. I named every kingdom. I created an entire council of nobles for the main human kingdom of Granada, and I will say a decent amount of that work has carried over, but especially like a lot of the names and the intricacies of all the different cities and whatnot that I had originally built, it's all gone. Because it was just way too much, way too early. here's what you need. To start a campaign, especially at like a level 1, you need to have a good idea of kind of what your world is. Is it a high magic world? Is it a low magic world? Are humans the prevailing species like they are in most fantasy worlds, or is it elves or something along those
Right.
lines? Um, and start off your players then in a small town. Because in that small town, you can come up with whatever you want to. You can go crazy with your world building. You can name every NPC in that town if you want to, but just keep it to that one town, because that's all you need until level 3, 4, maybe even later. Build out that one town and build out some area around that town. Maybe have some names written down for like who the lord is that kind of oversees this whole area. If you want to kind of like pull in that political aspect at some point, but that person doesn't need to be mentioned at all, really. Only if the players ask about him or whatever. Just kind of maybe have some of that background information, but really all you need to do is plan out that town, and the players won't know any different. They will hang out in the one tavern that's in that one town. They will get their one quest, and then they'll go and kill those goblins and come back and get this reward. And then the herbalist will have another quest for them, and they'll go do that
Yep.
thing. And that will work very, very well. Just keep it smaller, and then you can start to branch out. Then, after a few levels, you can kind of drop nuggets about that town up the river needs a little bit of help. Now, that's a big city, so you guys better be ready for that journey, and you can kind of build out kind of the journey to that bigger city and kind of lay some of the foundation there as you go. But you don't need kingdoms and continents built out to start. You need a town, and that's it.
I love it. That's exactly why I wanted you to do that, because you have the best example of that. I love it.
Yeah, yeah, of how I did way too much.
I mean, I loved your world though. It just we did like because of
I
how the
really like my
party
worlds
was
too, and
progressing.
I like that I did a decent amount of work beforehand. I did way too
Right.
much, but I like that I have had some of that, and then I've gone back and then kind of tried to kind of fix what I've done wrong. So, like for instance, before we did a single session of Wine Women Adventure Tour, I had a map of Stormcastle made and everything that's in Stormcastle. And you guys were
Right.
nowhere near there. Um, when we did this whole dragon heist game, I set that in Stormcastle, and I completely scrapped that map. I started over from scratch with Stormcastle, and it's much better now. So yeah, there was so much that I did beforehand that I don't need. I like the overall layout. I think there is definitely something to be said of getting an idea of what the world is. Are there like human kingdoms and political implications of things involved? What's kind of the geography around you? All that stuff. But you don't need a whole continent map or anything. You need to make a map of a town and the surrounding area, and that's about it. And then from there, you can certainly start to branch out. And that way, you kind of know it too, right? Once you start to play in it, you know it more, and that way it gets cemented in your mind and you don't forget about it. Whereas I wrote down 50 names and then someone asks about them and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like trying to look through my notes. Whereas Eridor
Right.
Stormcastle, I know that name because he's come up in my games and he's important. So yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna stop talking.
No, that was perfect. I just that's exactly what you probably should do. I start off small, work your way out, because I've been guilty of that as well. I'm not as good of a world builder, and that's well known, but at the same time, like I've thought too big and pushed too far. Like right now, I think the biggest thing I've ran into is Sharn is extremely huge for a city. I know, like I have a layer map to show me where things are, but good lord, there you could literally find anything there.
Yeah.
So it's like that's the intimidating portion. It is a huge metropolis, but I've just kind of taken it as we went. I there's a marketplace. I generated a random name and a market name,
Hmm.
and then I role played it with the characters. That way, and you don't have to have the whole city built out like John does. John is like literal shops. I'd like give you a basic map. You find it. I make notes so that way if you want to go there again, it's relative to the player. And,
Right.
I talked to Crunch or whatever we named him. I can't remember. He had a shop where he hated wizards, but he still sold magical items. And now he sells it at a discount because, Trick ran a
Trick.
fraudulent scheme. Yeah. And suckered him in, which was brilliant. But yeah, like John's example is the best. I really can't add anything more than what he said.
Well, on that note, then, we are actually a little bit over time, so we're going to go ahead and end our week there. Thanks, everyone who is here live, for hanging out with us. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on Apple's Podcasts or Spotify, thank you so much. Those other platforms, like, subscribes, whatever, thank you so much. Go ahead and join the Discord if you haven't already. You can leave questions for next time. Don't have our next week topic yet. We'll figure it out throughout the week.
We'll figure it out.
But in the meantime, you can catch us, Steve streams off and on at Stevo the DMO. Do you have one on Sunday this week?
No, we're taking time off because I got to do some planning. I'll probably be back on my channel in about an hour or so.
Okay.
We're probably going to play some Destiny 2. We're probably going to raid later tonight.
Can you stream Destiny 2 right now?
I can, yeah, because
Nice.
my buddy gave me his old rig, so I've been piecing it apart and I got to clean your old one up so I can bring it back to you.
Dope.
I'm just going to give you my old graphics card because I'm not going to use it. But
right.
yeah, I can stream Destiny 2 with no problem now, other than my RAM. It's got to get some more RAM, but that's the only issue. But yeah, I'll be back on maybe in an hour or so. I'm going to make some dinner.
Nice.
But yeah, man, we'll play.
So you'll be able to go on over there to watch some Destiny later on today. He's got his own Discord as well, which I'm sure there's a link to over there. We will be back here on this channel on Tuesday next week with our... I think this is our second session then of Tomb of Annihilation. Party is starting out at level 5 with basically endless magic items, so I'm going to have to find a way to make the jungle a little bit more difficult for them, or they will just steamroll everything.
The answer is dinosaurs.
So we'll see.
The answer is dinosaurs.
I know. So that should be fun, though. It's been fun already. It's a very different setting, so that should be fun. And then, of course, we will be back here next week with another Flycast. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us, and peace out. See you next time.